Welcome to today's Hinckley Forum. My name is Jack Jowers, and I'll be the host for today's conversation. The Hinckley Institute of Politics is a nonpartisan institute at the University of Utah. The Hinckley provides an array of transformative experiences for students through internships, forums, and classes. Hinckley forums seek to foster public discourse and civil debate on the most current and present issues, bringing local, national, and international thought leaders. We would like to thank our media sponsor, KCPW, for recording and rebroadcasting our forums as part of the Hinckley Radio Hour. Today's forum is Understanding Ranked Choice Voting. We are pleased to be joined by panelists Rebecca Chavez-Houck, managing member at Aspira Public Affairs and former representative of the Utah Legislature. David May from Utah Ranked Choice Voting, Tom Reese, communications coordinator for the Salt Lake County Clerk, and Representative Jeff Stenquist of the Utah Legislature. Today's discussion will be moderated by Justin Lee, Government Relations Director at the Utah League of Cities and Towns and the former State Elections Director. If you have any questions, please enter them into the YouTube chat, and we'll have some time towards the end to answer those. With that, I will turn the time over.
All right, thank you so much. It's good to be here, and we were discussing before. I'm terribly excited to be on this side of the panel. I've been on that side of several panels, and in my previous job, I've been in a lot of committee meetings where Representative Stenquist and former Representative Chavez-Houck have asked me a lot of questions over the years. So I feel like this is a good turnabout, and I'm excited to have this discussion. So to start off with, I'll take the easy one, and anybody can take this. What is ranked choice voting? You want to take it? I'll let you grab a mic and go for it. It's on.
Just put that little turn up. Yep.
Yeah.
So ranked choice voting. Unlike the traditional election, which we've all seen before, where you just go in and vote for one candidate and move on, ranked choice voting elections allow you to rank your candidates. So this is my first preference, this is my second preference, this is my third preference for office. If nobody gets 50%, if somebody gets 50%, then the automatic win. If nobody gets 50%, then the bottom, the candidate who receives the least amount of votes, their votes are retabulated to their next preference, and the votes are recalculated. So it's also reducing.
All right, so ranked choice voting is fairly new here in Utah. It's also known as instant runoff voting, another term for one people use. But former Representative Rebecca Chavez-Houck, I know you worked on ranked choice voting for a lot of years, trying to get legislation passed, and finally in 2018, in your last session, and I know you were a co-sponsor, not the chief sponsor, but we did pass legislation that allowed for municipalities to do ranked choice voting. So a couple of questions, and I'll send them to you, and then other people can take them up. But one, why? Why have you spent so many years and so many attempts trying to get ranked choice voting passed here in Utah? And then two, what did it take to finally get it passed?
Thanks, Justin. It's good to see you. Good to be here and good to be talking about voting. For those that might be familiar with my public policy record, I was in the House. I did a lot of legislation related to voting reform, and had the good fortune of serving on several councilmen. Commission on State and Utah's Democracy back in 2019. It really engaged me and enlightened me to the variety of ways that we can reform the way we vote. It's so important for people to vote in our country and to exercise their franchise as fully as they possibly can. But what I found as a legislator, I'm sure Representative has also run into this, is sometimes you're walking door to door, knock on the door, and somebody representative talk to me about who you are and invite me to vote, and they say, I don't vote. Well, my vote doesn't count. And so because of that, I started exploring what can we possibly be doing to open the doors a little bit more, or at least get people the perspective that when they cast a ballot, it really is counted. And of course it's counted. But I began to learn more about different methods of participatory or presidential voting. And I actually had a constituent that brought the idea of extra for our CDE back in 2008. But when, in 2016, I really started to sense with the voters this sense of, I really don't want to vote for a party, I want to vote for a person. The other thing I was noticing is in municipal elections, as a representative, though I wasn't affected by them, I would have a lot of constituents that would say to me, I really like these 3 people that are running for office. And I really hate having to just choose one. I mean, I would be happy with this other guy or this other gal. And so that kind of brought me back to, I wonder if voting might work in this particular instance. It gives people the opportunity to definitely vote for their top person, but if they're happy or they can't quite choose between 2 or 3 people and they'd be comfortable with one of the candidates, one or any of the number of candidates, it allows them to rank that preference. The other thing is that I had noticed that Representative Mark Roberts had been running a variety of pieces of legislation to retire or voting, and his concern was on morality. His concern was that when the people elect an individual, that usually that person doesn't get the majority of the electorate support. And the more that I learned about ranked choice voting, and as David mentioned, the winner is not called until you have at least 50% or 50% that's wanted to vote. To me, that felt as though you had a consensus of the government. You had at least a majority of the people that were casting the ballot, even if it wasn't their first choice of class selected, somebody they were comfortable with, and somebody that they felt could represent their perspective effectively in office. So to me, it was an elegant solution. I know that a lot of people are not familiar with it. I'm excited to see the variety of municipalities, states, and other local jurisdictions across the country, and there are a number of them that have started to use ranked choice voting. And the others might be able to speak to the actually, there's a history of it here in Utah, where the Republican Party in their local inter-party elections for officers, et cetera, and also to narrow down individuals that would go to the primary, have been using instant runoff voting in the past. So Utah has a history of using instant runoff voting. And so I felt back in 2017, when I first started to embark on and bring legislation on it, that the time was right because people were familiar with it. People wanted to try to find new ways to make sure that their vote counted. And then knowing Mark's history with it, and Representative Roberts with his passion for trying this new form of voting, that maybe the time was right and we kind of took it along its way. And it took the time, obviously, though. I was actually quite surprised how quickly the interest in moving forward at least the municipal project took. I, in the past, have run a pilot project to establish election day voter registration, and I had good success with pilot programs. Pilot programs are great because you can test things out, give them a try, see if people like it, and then come back to the table with the legislature later on, and if things need to be tweaked, you have the time to do that. So 2 things, I felt the time was right. Number 2, I felt that there was a consensus across the spectrum politically within the legislature that was open to the idea. And then thirdly, running it as a pilot gave us an opportunity to just test the waters and give people a chance to see if they liked it.
Here, Ben, Representative Stenquist, I know you run some legislation. Like what Representative Chavez-Houck said, tweaking this a little bit, making some changes. So a couple of questions. So why are you yourself interested in this legislation? And what do you think about this pilot project for ranked choice voting for municipalities, as opposed to just jumping all in and taking this statewide?
Well, that's a really good question, and I'm glad that we're doing this as a pilot project because I think it is something that we need to help the public understand and get comfortable with it, understand the pros and cons before we try to adopt it more broadly. Recently, Representative Roberts is no longer in the legislature. Representative Chavez-Houck is no longer in the legislature. So there were some tweaks that needed to be made to this pilot project. And so I was approached because it is a pilot project for municipalities. And I spent 12 years on the city council. And so I'm very familiar with municipal elections and how it works. And my city is one that is going to participate this year, has elected to participate in this pilot project. And so I'll use our city as an example. So I represent Draper. All of the city council seats in that So you might have, every other election cycle, there's either 2 open seats on the council or 3, either 2 in the mayor or 3 seats. And so when you have 2 or 3 seats open on the council, the way it was working before is just the top vote getters. You know, you can vote for up to 2 or up to 3, depending on the year. And then whoever receives the most number of votes, that's who gets elected. But that is a problem. So it's called a multi-winner race, not a single winner race. So multiple people can win off of it, but it does have that problem with plurality, where nobody generally, it would be pretty rare for someone to get more than 50% when you're picking 2 or 3 people, or maybe multiple people get more than 50%. I mean, there's all sorts of different permutations you could see from that. And I saw that with ranked choice voting, that there would be an advantage over just saying, well, I like this person, this person, this person. At least you get to be able to say, well, this one is my favorite, this is my second favorite, third favorite, and so forth. And so that you could maybe weight your vote for those that you prefer the most. You know, if I was voting for 3 candidates, maybe there's one that I really like and 2 that are acceptable. I'd like to be able to have my vote reflect my preferences in that. And so that's the thing that I think over a system that we might have currently, in at least in that example, I saw some advantages there. But again, really, I wanted to see that we had the opportunity to give this a try. You know, we won't really know. There's all sorts of theory around, you know, how is this going to impact how people campaign, and you know, what's it really going to be like? Are people going to really understand it, or is it going to be confusing? I've been talking to people in my community that have been asking me about it, and I've said, you know, well, you know, this year we're doing ranked choice voting, and they ask, well, what's that, and how does it work? And so I try to explain it, and I think they kind of scratch their heads a little bit, but I think once they see their ballots, they're like, oh, I picked number 1, I picked number 2. I think for the voter, I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. Now, I know that there's more complication on the tabulation side for election officials to tabulate it, but I'm confident that our election officials can figure it out, and it'll be just fine. So that's, you know, so I think it's going to work, but I think when we are able to try this out, that we're really going to be able to see it. You know, we really need to go back and look at the data, get a lot of feedback after this municipal election to see what's going on. The first cities that tried this were Vineyard and Payson 2 years ago. But that was a small sample set. And the feedback, even though it was a small sample set, the feedback was generally positive. And so now this year, more cities are opting in. And so I think we have 23 cities statewide that are trying this, including my own. So we'll see how it works out.
Okay, very good. So many of those cities are in Salt Lake County. So what questions are you receiving in Salt Lake County? And for those who don't know, although they are municipal elections, most municipalities, particularly along the Wasatch Front, contract with the county to really run the election, to print the ballots, send that out to student tabulation. So how are voters reacting? How did voters react in the primary election in August? Was there any confusion there or any questions there? And what's the education and outreach look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So there were definitely questions around the primary. I wouldn't say it was an enormous amount, but we were fortunate in that we have a well-trained staff. So when people do reach out, we're able to very quickly help them understand in your particular case, if you're in one of those municipalities, that you know, good or bad, you're in the primary this year, and that's going to be taking place during the ranked choice election, the general election on November 2nd. And generally, it was pretty well accepted. I think we talked to people about that. There's always the challenge or always the concern when something like this comes up, because it is new, that we do need to reach out and do a lot of education, and that's something we're trying very hard to do. We want to make sure that everybody understands. I think Representative Stenquist made a good point. Hopefully, when people see their ballot, it'll make sense to them. My hope is that's the case, but we want to make sure that regardless of your level of education, understanding, or experience with elections, or whatever it may be, you have the opportunity.
It's pretty low for a municipal primary election. We get pretty excited if we get anywhere near 20%. And vote by mail is not that.